Right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, really nice to see you all today. Thank you very much for joining. Um, we'll give it a couple more minutes to give the rest of the individuals a chance to join before we kick off. And then we can make a start. I'll introduce myself in the meantime. So I'm Rebecca. I'm the head of early careers here at Irwin Mitchell. And we're really excited to be able to bring you this. Hopefully you all know what you've signed up for, but it's an introduction to our clients at Irwin Mitchell. We have various speakers joining who will be talking through their journey into law, into Irwin Mitchell, and specifically the clients that they work with within their specific practice areas. So I'm really hoping you take away from today and get a real insight into the type of work we do and the people that we work with. There is a chat function for everybody to contribute today. So if anyone is speaking today and you want further clarification or you've got a follow-up question, please do use the chat box. And we've got people monitoring that on our side. And we do also have some of the pre-submitted questions that individuals have submitted in advance, which we will go through at the end as well. So I hope that is everything that you'd be expecting today. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is a bit about Irwin Mitchell to set the scene. Brilliant. Thanks, Amy. If you can press again. Thank you. Amazing. So, Irwin Mitchell, I'm sure we've got a mixed audience in terms of what you know about us. And like I said, the aim of today is for you to go away with a much deeper knowledge. So we are what you would call a super brand within the legal sector. Our clients give us 4.8 out of 5 on Trustpilot. So hopefully the clients that we talk to you about today are, within that representative cohort there. So we are one of the largest full service law firms in the UK. We're a UK law firm, but we also have a global reach. So we support international clients that might need legal advice or expertise within the UK. And those based here that need guiding, might need a guiding hand across many jurisdictions. So we're part of a bunch of law firms that work together internationally, which is a really exciting proposition for us as a firm, but also our clients. We have a leading private injury and medical negligence practice in the UK, one of the largest family law firm teams of a full service law firm. We're the second largest firm for private client work in the UK, and we have an award-winning court of protection and public law teams. And our business services group is a £60 million business. We have around 350 people working there who are servicing our clients across corporate and commercial activities. And within that, we have an award-winning employment law team as well. So hopefully that gives you an idea of where we're positioned in the market. In terms of outside the legal work that we do, we're really proud to say that we have made over £3 million in charity donations through the firm's registered charity. We're signatories to the Legal Sustainability Alliance Legal Renewables Initiative. We have reached Disability Confident Leader Level 3, and we work with Even Break, who assist candidates with a disability to getting into work. We're a signatory to the Business in the Community Race at Work Charter. We're currently ranked 57th in the Social Mobility Index and work with Prime in local community schools to improve access to all. And we do all of this to ensure that, of course, we're a responsible business with regards to our communities and to create opportunities for everybody to get into the sector. Hopefully, as you'll find out from all your research and perhaps from today's session, trainees do really get involved in everything. We each get a dedicated amount of time each year to volunteer in the ways that we would like to give back, whether that's going back to schools, universities, or working with charities. Thanks, Amy. And then finally, we have helped over 1 million clients, which is an outstanding number. As you'll discover from today's session, we are a full service law firm, which means that whatever advice our clients need, we can help with. On average, our current client base uses us for more than one service. So there's a lot of cross collaboration as well. And actually the way that we're set up, as you'll find out, gives us that really unique ability to support clients across, whether it's an individual on the individual side or perhaps on the business services group. So I think we go into some more detail on the next slide in terms of how we split our legal teams into two streams. Perfect, thank you. So the firm is split into two streams, and the training contracts that we offer also mirror those streams. So we offer training contracts in either legal services for business or legal services for individuals. And as you can see on the screen, within those, we have numerous departments. It's worth noting that when you're applying to Owen Mitchell, you do need to have an idea at the start of which stream you're particularly interested in. So again, I hope you go away from today really kind of solidified your area of interest at Owen Mitchell. So on the legal services for business side, or business services group, we have national experts across our teams, and our ambition is to become the leading firm for business services for the mid-corporate market. On the business services slide there, you can see all the different teams that you might rotate through during your training contract. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what would be open to you potentially if you were on the business services side of your training contract. Moving on to the legal services for individuals, as I've mentioned, we've got award-winning teams, so quarter protection, public law, medical negligence, personal injury. That also includes serious injury, asbestos and occupational disease, and international serious injury. And then finally, private client group, which includes family, private client advisory, wills, trusts, estate disputes, and international and high net worth. So as you can see, that we offer a lot, and I do hope that truly emphasizes that we are a full service law firm, and it allows us to provide a really streamlined and collaborative approach for our clients, which I'm hoping you take away as a message today. We don't have time today to go through each and every area, so the ones that are highlighted on the screen are the areas that you will be hearing from today. So I will pass over now to Joanna to talk about business services groups, and specifically from the litigation perspective. So thanks, Joanna.
Thanks, Rebecca. Just wait for me to appear on screen. Bear with me. There we go. Thank you. So yes, as Rebecca said, my name is Joanna Wilkinson. I'm a senior associate solicitor in the commercial dispute resolution team based in the Leeds office. I've been with Owen Mitchell around 2.5 years now. I studied my law degree at Leeds Met, which is now Leeds Beckett. And then I did my LPC at College of Law in York, which is now the University of Law. So show my age a little bit. I undertook my training contract actually at a predominantly personal injury firm, but I did a secondment in a commercial litigation team at another firm and realised that was more in line with my interests. So I've practiced in that area ever since. So on the slides, you'll see all of the departments within our business services group and the names of the heads of those departments. So as trainees within the business services group, you would work for a couple of years or maybe a bit longer if you stood in the SQE, and training up to 4 of these departments. So just a little bit more about the business services group. We have a key strength and depth across all key business legal services, and there's very little really that we can't do for our business clients. We've a range of transactional and litigious offerings, so that means that we can solve both business as usual issues for clients, so things such as lease renewals, drafting of commercial contracts, but also kind of distress issues, so trade bar disputes, shareholder disputes, other helping senior executives when they need to either defend or bring civil or criminal cases. So, as you can see, we deal with a whole wide range of issues. So we're really proud of, as a business services group, that we can actually support businesses through their life cycle. So right from day one in the startup of the business, all the way through aspects of day-to-day trading, growth, restructuring, reorganization, and then through to owner exit or sale and everything that kind of falls in between. So our clients really rely on the multidisciplinary expertise that we have within the group and the advice that we can give them at all aspects of their business life. So as I said, I gave a few examples before. We're here to cover all of those, and it's really a relationship-driven approach. We're taking time to get to know the clients, working in partnership with them, and our clients really value having us there as a trusted legal advisor whenever they might need us. So we help navigate clients through a complex world of law and business, supporting their ambitions, working closely with them to deliver quick, uncomplicated solutions, and hopefully remove kind of any excessive legal jargon so that they understand what they need to understand to get to where they need to be. So we're UK legal experts, but we do have global capability and expertise in core industry sectors. There's a number of departments within the group, varying in size. So our largest departments are real estate and employment, with our smallest being banking and finance and the intellectual property team. But having said that, the smaller departments, they really are punching above their weight and dealing regularly with lawyers who are in top 20 firms. So there is some really good work to be getting involved with, even in the smaller teams. And most of our teams are award-winning and led by recognised leaders in the field. So that's great from a trainee perspective. So as business lawyers, we only really have one goal, and that's to meet our clients' objectives and understand what they are and help them get to where they want to be. And as Rebecca touched on before, we really do have a golden opportunity to cross-sell between all of those departments, because there is such a breadth of experience within the group. Business clients quite often will need a number of people from a number of the different departments. So we're really expert in kind of teasing out what the legal issues are, what they need help solving, and then finding an expert within the BSG group who can help. Thanks, Amy. Just moving on. So just a little bit about the clients that we work with in litigation. As I say, known as litigation or commercial dispute resolution, it kind of broadly means the same thing. But we work with everything from individuals right up to PLCs and everything in between, really. So just to give you an idea, when we're working with individuals, from a litigation perspective, we're usually looking at people who are shareholders or directors in businesses who found themselves in a dispute, or contract disputes where the individual is the customer. We've got a number of professional negligence matters against other firms of solicitors, accountants, surveyors, other providers of professional services where the service that they've provided hasn't kind of met what the expectations of the client were. And for businesses, again, we deal with a lot of contract disputes, ranging subject matter. Pretty much anything you could think of falls across our desk that's within the commercial sphere. Debt recovery, large scale debt recovery, millions of pounds sometimes that are owed to businesses. Quite often we'll receive referrals through from our corporate team where they've acted in the sale or purchase of a business, and there's been a dispute that has arisen out of that sale purchase agreement. So we deal with a lot of that. And then another thing that we have a focus on is procurement disputes. So acting for businesses who are tendering for contracts in the public sector. So as I mentioned then, we work across a wide range of the departments within the business services group. Largely referrals come from our corporate team, commercial team, so they'll usually be contract disputes. We assist our restructuring and insolvency team quite regularly on a number of matters which have been issued in the courts, and as well with our employment team, we assist with any issues that aren't dealt with in the tribunals, so anything that is dealt with in the civil courts, we will pick those up as well. So hopefully that's given you an idea of the types of work we deal with in Business Services Group. As I say, it's a huge array, so it's quite difficult to touch on everything, but hopefully that gives you a flavour, and I'll now pass over to Hamza, who is our current trainee in the team.
Thanks for that, Jo. Hi everyone. So by way of introduction, I'm Hamza. I'm a first year trainee in the commercial disputes team, also based in Leeds. Just in terms of my journey to law and this role, it was pretty straightforward, I'd say. So I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Leeds, where I graduated in 2024. And shortly after that, I was offered this training contract. I have also spent a bit of time as a personal injury paralegal, just preparing for this role, and I found that that was something that was pretty useful, just getting used to working in a legal environment. In terms of the types of tasks that I'm used to in the CDR team, as Jo has touched upon, because we do work for a range of clients, there is a broad range of tasks that I'm expected to work on. On one end of the spectrum, there is the sort of administrative side of things. So that can be preparing and creating bundles that we might need to send to court, or the other side, if we've had correspondence and, relied on particular documents. There's also things like electronic filing and conducting file reviews to make sure things are in order before we engage in communications with other parties. In terms of what I am enjoying at the moment, I think it's more of the substantive legal tasks. So that includes things like legal research, where I have the opportunity to go away and look at an area of contention, or perhaps an aspect of law where a fee earner doesn't have the time to consider, and I can use my own initiative and apply what I've picked up and what I've learned to the needs and the circumstances of our clients. And probably the most enjoyable thing I'm working on at the moment is a relatively new stream of work. So we're starting to act for consumers that are they've purchased faulty and inherent vehicles from car dealerships or financial providers, and they're looking for compensation and assistance. And in these sort of low value, high volume matters, I've had the opportunity to really get stuck in, so I can assess the prospects when a file comes through. I get the chance to look at the initial agreements or contracts, sort of external reports that have come through from experts within the industry to see if these are matters that Irwin Mitchell would typically like to act for. And then I've also had the chance to draft a wide range of legal documents as well. So that includes communications with the client once we onboard them, but it goes all the way through the life cycle to when we're looking to issue court proceedings and we have to draft things like particulars of claims and claim forms. So as a relatively new trainee, I think it has been really good to get exposed into a wide variety of work so soon. And just in general as well, working with different fee earners. So we are a quite collaborative team. So it's not only people in Leeds, it's also people in Manchester or Birmingham. And it's just nice to see the different niches and specialties that people are working in. So I hope that was useful, and I will be now passing over to Victoria in our Court of Protection team.
Great, thank you very much, Hamza. Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Ward. Sorry, I've just realised my camera's off. There we go. Hello everyone. My name is Victoria Ward and I'm a partner in the Quarter Protection team at Irwin Mitchell, based in the London office. We're a national department and we've got teams based in most of the offices. I think there's about 8 COP teams across the country. The London team is the second largest team, followed by, I think, Sheffield and Birmingham, with Manchester being our largest team. Just a bit of background about me. I grew up in a small village in Kent, so outside London, and went to secondary school in my local town of Tunbridge. I always enjoyed subjects like English, history and languages, but I wasn't quite sure when I did my A-levels whether I might actually be passionate enough about those subjects to study them at degree level. I was quite keen on English, but I remember my mum saying to me, to do English, Victoria, you really have to devour books, and I'm not sure you devour books. And I really loved reading on holiday, but I wasn't sure that I was reading the one book a week that my mum seemed to think I would need to do if I did English. So I thought about law, thinking it would be quite a good open-ended degree, which would enable me to potentially qualify into a profession at the end of it. But if I didn't enjoy it, I thought it would be a good analytical degree to have, and it could open many doors for me. So I applied to several universities and went to Exeter in the end, which was my top choice. Quite a small cathedral city, which was still a bit bigger than where I grew up, so it's very exciting going there. It was the campus uni, and I did 3 years there, which I really enjoyed. Back then, there was a traditional route of applying for training contracts in your second year at uni if you wanted to start 2 years later. So I interviewed at several firms and chose a mix of London and regional firms to apply to. At the time, I was very interested in family law because I quite liked the idea of working with people, and that was the subject that I really enjoyed at uni. So I focused on firms that had a good reputation in family law, both in London and regionally. And I was lucky enough to secure a training contract at a regional firm based in Tunbridge Wells. So I had that lined up from when I finished uni after doing my LPC. I did a mixture of seats during my training contracts. We all had to do a residential property seat, so that was interesting. I also did family, private client, and a general litigation seat. Again, during my training contract, I thought that I was going to move towards family law, but I did my last seat in private client, and the firm that I worked in at the time had a really quite good and established quarter protection team, which I really enjoyed my time there, and I ended up actually being offered a role in the quarter protection team at that firm. So I ended up qualifying into COP, and then I spent just under 2 years there before moving on to Irwin Mitchell, which has I think the largest quarter protection team in the country, and due to its great reputation, ranked #1 in the directories, it was the natural next step for me. So since joining IM, I've started at fairly NQ solicitor level, going through to associate, senior associate, and now I'm a partner. So in terms of the type of clients that we work with within Quarter Protection, so the Quarter of Protection is there to help make decisions for vulnerable people where they're unable to make decisions for themselves. And this means they have an impairment or disturbance in the functioning of the mind or brain, which means they're unable to make decisions for themselves. So this is taken from the Mental Capacity Act, which is the statute that governs the Quarter of Protection. So within the Quarter of Protection, there's 2 spheres: health and welfare decisions, and also property and financial affairs. So within the Quarter of Protection team at Irwin Mitchell, we specialise in financial matters under the Quarter of Protection, and our public law team team deal with health and welfare matters under the Court of Protection, and you'll be hearing from my colleague Matt later, who deals with, who's in the public law team, who can tell you a bit more about that. So in terms of the type of clients we work with, predominantly I worked with a lot of elderly clients in my first role, which was clients suffering from conditions like dementia, Alzheimer's, learning disabilities. But when I came to Irwin Mitchell, we obviously have a very strong and large personal injury client base. And so a lot of our clients in the Court of Protection team have had a brain injury as a result of an accidental medical negligence, which means they can no longer make decisions for themselves about their finances. So at IM, we act as professional deputy for clients where they're unable to make decisions for themselves, and we're appointed by the Court of Protection as the deputy under Irwin Mitchell Trust Corporation. So as well as being a partner within the team, I'm also a director of IMTC and able to make deputy decisions for our clients. So we often become involved when a client has a claim and the claim starts moving and money starts coming through, and it's clear that the client's not going to have capacity to be able to manage that compensation themselves. We have a complete range of clients, some who are quite independent and able to take a lot of decisions for themselves, even though they might have a financial deputy. Others may require some support with decision making, and others will require complete support and aren't able to make any decisions for themselves at all. So there's a real range of clients that we have. The types of questions we face in Court of Protection can be really wide-ranging, unusual, difficult and challenging, but also academically interesting too. Some of the more interesting ones that I could mention are clients asking to buy very expensive cars like a Lamborghini, which might be well in excess of their means. We've also had a client wanting to go to Turkey for a hair transplant. So these are the type of financial decisions we might be asked to make as financial deputy. Something to note is that our clients are often very vulnerable, and so to work in Court of Protection and to be a good cop lawyer, the key skills I think you need to have are to be very good at communication, be able to speak clearly, and be able to write in plain English as well, so that our clients and their families can understand what you're saying to them in very straightforward terms. You're also required to be really empathetic. Often our clients are going through a really difficult and traumatic time and have often had a life-changing injury. So it's really important that anybody working in COP has to have those really good people skills and the ability to listen. There's also lots going on in COP. We're a very busy team and department. Clients want answers often very instantly, so it requires you to be very organised and efficient and good at juggling workloads. Just touching on now the sort of decisions we might make as financial deputy and the other teams we might work with within Irwin Mitchell or other external lawyers. So when making decisions for clients, we have to look at whether they can make a decision for themselves. So the starting point is presuming a client has capacity until it's proven otherwise. But where they might lack capacity for a specific decision, then we need to still take into account their wishes and feelings, the views of any loved ones, and also any others involved in their lives, like any other professionals like litigation solicitors or perhaps case managers involved in their care and therapies. So we work very closely with a lot of clients, as I've said, who've got a personal injury or clinical negligence claim. So we work really closely with litigation solicitors, particularly during a claim, to discuss recoverability of advice so that we can set budgets and agree expenditure without sort of dipping into a pot that might not be awarded by the defendants in the claim for that purpose. But ultimately, the deputy's got overall discretion to make a decision on a best interest basis. We make a lot of day-to-day decisions like setting budgets and opening bank accounts, to more complex and larger decisions such as I mentioned, like purchasing a high-value vehicle, or maybe purchasing a property for a client and adapting that for their disabled needs. We also help them sort out their will, and clients might be going through anything in their lives, just as you or I may. And a common one that we also see is sometimes, sadly, clients' relationships breaking down and requiring support from family solicitors if they're going through a matrimonial dispute. So that sort of thing the deputy has to get involved with and support with. But there's lots of working with different teams like conveyancing solicitors and private client solicitors for sorting out wills. A lot of our clients as well, as I said, might have family law needs, and some of our clients as well are children and might have special educational needs, and we often need to take advice from educational solicitors if they need support in getting the right school placement. So I think court of protection is a great practice area because not only do you specialised in court of protection, the Mental Capacity Act, but you're also getting involved in lots of different issues concerning lots of other different pockets of law. So it's a really good broad seat to get involved in. And finally, from me, just a little bit about what you can expect if you're a trainee in the Court of Protection team. From my part, I love having trainees in our team. I think it's great to get input from trainees and to work with them, take them to lots of client meetings and get their insight on different tasks, which might give us a fresh perspective. If you start with us as a trainee, we have a paralegal and trainee onboarding team. So your first 2 weeks would be an induction to Court of Protection, where you would be onboarded by a couple of the paralegals in our team, teaching you how to do day-to-day tasks and also providing some core training on Court of Protection matters. So that's something that sets us apart from maybe some of the other departments. Common tasks you might be asked to assist with is attending lots of client meetings. We're asked to go and see our clients at least once a year, normally at home. So it's a great opportunity for trainees to come and shadow and to learn more about the clients and get stuck into the cases and to help deal with any follow-up action points, and also work on your drafting skills by dealing with the meeting note. We have the annual review meetings, and we also have major meetings on the settlement of a claim. They're called post-settlement meetings, where we look at what's been awarded in a client's claim and what budgets we want to set for their years ahead, essentially. So dealing with things like property purchase budget and investments. We also ask our trainees to get involved in drafting. We have lots of court applications that are required, so trainees get good exposure to develop their drafting skills. And there's also an opportunity as well to be involved in lots of BD, getting involved with events with case managers, investment managers, and also there's lots of seminars and events going on all of the time in relation to COP and the case law that's evolving. So if you're a trainee, you'll be encouraged to get involved with things like that as well. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour about me, about the Court of Protection team and what you can expect from life as a trainee. So I'll now pass over to my colleague Freya, who's our trainee in the Bristol team, and I'll leave her to talk to you about her experience. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Victoria. That's great. Hi, everyone. So yeah, my name's Freya. Just by way of background, I grew up in Brixham in Devon. I did my law degree at Oxford Uni, and now I'm a second-year trainee in the Court of Protection team in Bristol, and I'm also on the SQE route, so taking part in that course at the moment. So I think Victoria's covered lots of the points I was going to say about our clients and general background. So I'll focus a bit more on the sorts of tasks that I've been doing as a trainee. But just quickly, just to kind of reiterate what Victoria was saying, our clients are, I think, all individuals. We don't have businesses as our clients in the Court of Protection team, and we act as professional deputy for these individuals who lack capacity to make decisions about their finances and affairs. Often a lot of our clients have had a personal injury claim, so for example they may have been involved in a road traffic accident or a medical negligence birth injury, and then they will receive a large payout, and we help them to basically manage that money and make sure that it's being managed in their best interests. And yeah, related to that, the different teams we work with at Owen Mitchell are often the serious injury team, medical negligence team, and also we do have some crossover with the public law team. For example, as Victoria was saying, a lot of our clients have lots of different weird and wonderful queries, and some of those issues do cross over into health and welfare issues, which as professional deputy, we can't really be involved in those issues directly. So we would pass that on over to the public law team, and vice versa, they would ask for our input on finance and affairs issues. So in terms of tasks that I've been able to get involved in as a trainee in the COP team, you really are able to get stuck in with everything. So I've done quite a lot of client visits, particularly for the annual review meetings. So some examples of recent visits I've done, recently went on a visit to meet with some parents to discuss property adaptations on a property that they're purchasing for their child, who is our client, who is severely disabled. So they're looking at making lots of different adaptations to the property so that it suits our client's needs as best as possible, which can be quite an exciting but also quite a stressful time. So we are very much involved in supporting family and the client through that. Another example is I recently attended a meeting for a client who has regained capacity. So we sometimes also work on trust cases in the Court of Protection team. So where individuals either have capacity or maybe they've regained capacity after an injury. And this client in particular now runs their own business. And we were discussing things like their tax return and a rental property they have. So that was a really lovely meeting to be able to sit in on and just see, the journey that they've been on. Another task that I might be involved in is drafting applications to the Court of Protection. So for example, when we first get appointed as deputy, we have to apply to the court for us to be appointed. So I've been involved in drafting some of those applications, or for example, maybe if we already have a deputy order in place, we might then want to get that amended for a certain reason. For example, sometimes purchasing property, we have to apply to the court for that to be changed in the order. Another example of tasks I would get involved in is research. So this can be anything from technical legal points. For example, I did some research on the Disability Facilities Grant and whether it would apply to our client in a certain situation. But then it might also be more practical things. So for example, I did some research to try and find a property finder. So looking at a few different estate agents and in the area that was appropriate for our client and trying to source the one that would be most appropriate. Other tasks I've been involved in is just liaising with other service providers. So for example, speaking to the local authority to help them conduct a financial assessment and to see sort of what benefits our client is entitled to, and maybe speaking to property developers or finding builders and decorators, and also discussing the case with case managers. So there's lots of discussing the case with other service providers, and it's a very collaborative area, which is great because it feels like everyone's getting involved to make sure that the best outcomes can be achieved for our clients. I'd say in terms of the area that I've enjoyed the most, or the task that I've enjoyed the most, is probably going on the visits. It's really lovely to just see the difference that the money and how by managing the money that's making to your client's life. So and it's always nice to meet family and just be able to put faces to names. So yeah, I'd say the visits are probably what I've enjoyed the most so far. So yeah, hopefully that's a quick whistle-stop tour of sorts of things you would be involved in if you were a trainee in the COP team. I'll now pass over to Ryan in the public team.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ryan. I'm a solicitor in the Public Law and Human Rights team in our Manchester office. So I'm just here to tell you a bit about the work we do, and most importantly, kind of the clients we're supporting, so who we're doing the work for. A bit about me. I qualified as a solicitor in March this year, so I'm still relatively fresh. I did my law degree at the University of York, and then before I started my training contract, did my LPC in Manchester. I think because it was still sort of fresh, I did my seats in the Court Protection team, our Wills, Trust and Estates Disputes team, which is in the client team, and then also a seat in public. And I was a paralegal in the public team for about 5 years before starting my training contract, all kind of with Mitchell. So the public law team deals with kind of quite a few different areas. So the first one, as Victoria alluded to, was the kind of health and welfare decisions of the Court of Protection. So that is mainly where there's a dispute about what is in the best interest of someone who lacks capacity. So if they can't make the decision themselves about their welfare, then a decision has to be made in their best interest, and that's kind of a collective decision making with kind of family, friends, any treating health professionals, the social worker, local authority, and anyone else with an interest in their care. And if there's an argument or a dispute about what is best for someone, then that can go to the Court of Protection to make a decision to adjudicate on that dispute. So that can range from kind of where someone should live, the care they should receive, often if they have access to social media, and kind of lots of restrictions that might be on kind of a vulnerable person in order to keep them safe, and often even the vulnerable person themselves is disputing the restrictions they're under. That can also include kind of serious medical treatment cases. So that's where disputes about whether they should continue life-sustaining treatment or do not resuscitate, but also kind of whether or not it's in someone's best interest to receive any kind of organ transplants or quite more serious medical interventions, such as kind of breast cancer surgery or treatment. The other areas we do is judicial review. So that's where you challenge a public body's lawful decision making, or well, we would be arguing it's unlawful, and that can range from individual care packages where a local authority might cut the number of hours someone might be receiving, to all the way up to kind of arguing that primary legislation is incompatible with the European Convention. So it's very broad. Another area we do is education law, and that's mainly around special educational needs. So that's supporting children, young people and their families to kind of ensure the child is getting the right support in school if they've got kind of additional needs. And then the fourth one is our civil liberties team and actions against the police. So that's kind of traditionally breaches of the Human Rights Act and any damages that could flow from that. So the types of clients we work with, we do quite a few different areas. So our clients are all quite varied. I think often if you're needing a public lawyer, you're having some disputes with a public body, and many of our clients who lack capacity can be incredibly vulnerable. They can be victims of kind of modern slavery or human trafficking. They could have quite severe learning difficulties or dementia. And so that requires quite sensitive people skills and kind of explaining very abstract concepts of law in as simply as we can. Often our other clients are family members of these vulnerable people or children or young people. But we also do support some advice for schools. We do, our education team also kind of provides some advice to some schools and colleges for any public law issues they may be having to deal with. And then also people who have been victims of kind of human rights breaches by the state. So it's a really varied client base in terms of the individuals we support, but we also do act for certain charities and public interest groups if they want to intervene or get involved in any legal issues. So a good example today is Matt, who was meant to be speaking today, and I'm in his place, is in the Supreme Court today, acting for the charities Mind, MenCap, and the National Autistic Society, as they're intervening in a case that's before the Supreme Court this week. So it is an incredibly varied client base. I think the teams we work with is, we work with the court protection team quite a lot, as has been kind of mentioned. They deal with the property and affairs side of the court protection. So, but obviously where someone should live has both financial and welfare kind of considerations. So we will get involved if there's any concerns about that. We work with our employment team quite closely with some of the education and the schools advice we provide, and often a lot of our personal injury clients or clinical negligence clients, again, if they're having kind of issues with accessing statutory funding or support from public bodies, we can assist with that. And I think also, it's an area of law that touches lots of people's lives and they can come across. So we support, like, some of our kind of the business group, some of the directors they've supported, they may be having a personal problem with either family members, their parents, or if their children have additional needs, and we assist them as well. So the type of work as a trainee, I think, is, and every department will say this, it's incredibly varied. I think it's kind of quite broad. It deals with drafting court applications because most of our work is contentious, to attending hearings. I think I found as a trainee, I went to a lot of court hearings, and both in person and remote. It's attending conferences with barristers, with the other side, along with solicitors, or if a barrister is attending, often there to attend without the kind of solicitor, but with the barrister and taking a note. It's often going out to see the vulnerable person to kind of get their wishes and feelings and how they're finding things. And I think that is a really rewarding part of the job, is to actually meet in person some of the people we're kind of trying to fight for and protect through the kind of public law system. So I think it's quite varied, and there's lots of different ways you can get involved into the different areas of law in the public law team. And I think I'm passing to Megan, who is a trainee in our team now, who can speak a bit more about the type of work she's been doing.
Thanks, Ryan. So I'm Megan, and I'm a second year trainee in the Newcastle office, currently in my third seat in public law and human rights. So about me, I studied law at Northumbria Uni, and I did my LPC as part of my degree in my fourth year. Then I took up a paralegal job at IM in the public law team, and paralegaled for a couple of years before starting my training contract roughly a year ago. So as Ryan said, there's a variety of different special interest groups in public law, but the majority of my experience has been in the court of protection, the health and welfare side, specifically deprivation of liberty cases. So these are cases where someone lacks capacity to make decisions about their care and accommodation, and there has been concerns about their safety living in the community. So then they are placed in, say, a care home, and it's often against their wishes. So where a person is deprived of their liberty and they are objecting to that placement, they are then entitled to bring court proceedings and what's called Section 21A proceedings. And that's where we come in to act on that person's behalf, to get their situation reviewed by the court to see if their placement at that care home or other type of placement is actually in their best interests. So yeah, I think one case that particularly sticks out to me is we had a client who was a gentleman in his 60s, let's call him P. he was suffering from a brain injury, and that left him unable to communicate properly. He required visual aids to speak and get his point of view across. He was neglecting his own personal care and his safety in the community, so he was then put into a care home. And when we reviewed the case, and as a trainee, your role is to go out and get his wishes and feelings, which I did. And part of my role was producing an easy read guide to try and explain these complex court proceedings to someone that has a significant cognitive impairment, to try and get his wishes and feelings out of him. And that was successful. It was just very clear that he hated the placement, did not like living there. And another aspect of the trainee role is liaison with the client's family members as well. And it was very evident that this man was sort of left in a care home that was catered towards people with dementia, not brain injuries like he had. And he was just left completely unstimulated and wasn't given the brain injury centered care that he really needed. So yeah, our role was to bring court proceedings into the court of protection, and asking the social worker from the local council to give a full analysis of all of the alternative options that were available for his residents in care. And part of our role as well was to instruct an expert because of the complexities of this case and what we thought he needed. And ultimately, it came up with the expert concluding that he needed a bespoke placement in the community, and that they didn't think leaving him in this care home was in his best interests. So ultimately, the local authority moved him and he got that bespoke placement, and it went really well. It was really successful. He went from staying in complete isolation in his room in this care home to having brain injury trained carers in the community coming and taking him to football matches. And his mood was completely lifted. His family saw a stark increase in his mood. And that's just a case that always really sticks out to me, because you've got to learn how to adapt to the different needs of each client, because each one is different and requires different ways of communicating, and you've just got to sort of think on your feet and problem solve as to how to best get this particular client to engage with you. So that was really good and always sticks out to me about that. I think in terms of other training tasks, you are trusted to draft the court papers, obviously with a supervisor checking through them, attending conferences with council, round table meetings, drafting instructions to experts, and things like that. So it's a really good, really rewarding team to be a part of, and no case is ever the same. So yeah, that is my 2 pence on public law. Thanks for listening, and I think I'm passing to Chris in our medical negligence team.
Thanks, Megan. Hello, everyone. Chris Hurlston here, in the medical negligence department. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the work that we do, but before we do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and how I ended up studying law and my journey really into the profession. So I went to school, just a regular local secondary school in Birmingham, and I originally wanted to study economics, but in fact, after getting my A-level results, I realised that maybe actually law would be a good area to go into because of lots of transferable skills, and it seemed like a very interesting area. And I've always been quite pro sort of patient rights and sort of sticking up for people who couldn't stick up for themselves. I studied my degree originally at University College London. I actually wasn't very happy there. So after the first term, I withdrew from there and actually completed my law degree in Birmingham, which is where I'm from. And I was a lot happier there. It was a campus university and sort of life and experience that I always wanted, and was very happy there. During my degree, I studied medicine and law. That was one of the modules that we could do. And I just absolutely loved it. I just thought it was so fascinating, so many interesting topics. And the sort of the things that we studied were all about real people, and sort of everyday people and the impact of medical issues on their lives. And I just found the whole thing just so really encapsulating. And so becoming a medical negligence lawyer was a real sort of natural fit for me, and sort of finding Irwin Mitchell as a firm that had such a strong reputation in this area meant that this was a firm that I really wanted to find out more about. And I was very grateful to have had the chance to do a vacation placement, and obviously was offered a training contract and qualified into this area. I qualified in 2009, so a few years ago now. And then after about 3 years, I did take an opportunity to go to another firm. But then I came back to Irwin Mitchell after about 3 years. And it was really having the quality of the work that we have here, and the sort of supportive team environment, and a culture really that really celebrates individuals and diversity and inclusion, really sort of set Irwin Mitchell apart from other firms. And I was very happy to come back, and really accepted a promotion as an associate, and I'm now a senior associate at the firm. So in terms of the work then that we do in medical negligence, well, I suppose it speaks for itself a little bit, but just to give you some examples of the kind of cases that we deal with, they're all aspects really of where something has gone wrong in somebody's medical treatment. And that could be because there's been a delay in diagnosis. So, for example, somebody who's been diagnosed with cancer might question whether actually, because they've been under investigations for a long time, whether that diagnosis could have been made sooner. We often act for children and babies who have sadly suffered really catastrophic brain injuries during the course of their birth. We often act for the families or loved ones of people who have died. And sometimes that may involve us to go to the coroner's court, which is where a court really investigates the circumstances of somebody's death. We may also be instructed to investigate a case where there has been a surgical failure. So if somebody goes into hospital, for example, to have their gallbladder removed, and in the process their bowel is injured, we may be able to investigate and bring a case because of that. Maybe because the bowel shouldn't have been injured in the first place, but obviously we have to recognise that there are sometimes recognised complications. But it may be that even if, for example, the bowel was injured, there may have been a failure to have detected that and noticed it at the time. And that can lead to all kinds of complications and difficulties for the individual patient. We sometimes deal with cases where there have been pharmaceutical failures. So that might be because somebody has been given too much or too little of a particular medication, or because they've been given the wrong medication and that has caused harm. In terms of an area of law, it's a really fascinating one because you get to learn lots about medicine. There are so many really diseases and sort of complications that people suffer with day in, day out that I had never even heard of before I started this work. So every day is a bit like a school day. We obviously aren't medically qualified, so we don't often have immediate answers to the questions that our clients are asking, and we often have to go to medical experts in different areas to actually give us the answers that we need so that we can investigate and bring our cases. In the more sort of complex cases, for example, where children have suffered brain injuries and they might have problems in a whole host of different areas of their lives. So it might affect, for example, their mobility, their speech, their sort of cognitive or intellectual ability. We would need to involve experts for all of those different areas. So when we're discussing cases or having meetings with them, it wouldn't be uncommon to have a whole host of experts, and it could be as many as 8, 9 or 10 experts involved in a case, each one commenting on a particular aspect of the case. One of the more complicated aspects of the work that we do is what lawyers call causation. And what you have to understand is that many of our clients, because they were receiving medical treatment in the first place, that was because there was probably something wrong with them medically to begin with. And what we have to try and work hard to do is disentangle what extra harm or injury the negligence has caused, as opposed to what they may have been dealing with in any event. And we can spend quite a lot of time in this area trying to disentangle those issues. We're very fortunate to have experts help us with all of that, and often very talented barristers as well. So we're not left to do it all by ourselves, but those are the kind of things that we can spend a lot of time thinking about, which is why it can be different from other areas of personal injury law. And then in terms of the other departments that we work with, I mean, we've heard from a lot of those teams already. A lot of our clients don't have capacity, so we have to involve the Court of Protection. Some of our clients are likely to receive large sums of compensation, so we'll be involving our Court of Protection team to make sure that that money is handled correctly, and also making sure that our clients get advice about how to manage those funds into the future so that the money lasts, and so that they have access to all of the things that they need to help them deal with and come to terms with the injury that they have suffered. I'm not going to spend any more time talking about that, but I'm going to introduce you now to our trainee, Salma, who's going to give you some insights as to the work that she's been doing while she's been with us. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Hi, thanks Chris. My name's Salma and I am a first year trainee here at the Birmingham office of Irwin Mitchell. I'm very new to the firm, so I just joined less than 2 months ago now. A bit about my background and my journey into law. So I grew up in Birmingham. I went to a local secondary school here, and then I went to the Uni of Oxford for a law degree. So I stayed there for 3 years, and I applied to Irwin Mitchell in my second year of uni. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to work in law, but I wasn't sure, what kind of law. But I applied to Irwin Mitchell. It was the only firm I applied to in my second year because I attended one of these events actually, and I just thought everyone was so friendly and welcoming and approachable, and I could really see it being somewhere that I worked and thrived. So I applied to that, and I was fortunate enough to get a place on the legal work placement, which was only a week, and I did that in the summer. And then during the work placement, there was a final interview, and I didn't actually know applying to the work placement that it was also an application for the training contract at the same time. But that final interview, fortunately, led me to the training contract. So here I am. This is my first seat, medical negligence. In terms of the kind of tasks I've been doing so far, it's been so varied. I've had input on pretty much every aspect of a claim, like every stage of the life cycle of the claim. So to give you a sense of how a medical negligence claim goes, usually it starts off with a meeting with a new client. And in that meeting, we kind of get a sense of what the case theory might be. So the client comes to us and tells us, I think that my cancer should have been diagnosed much earlier. And if it had been diagnosed earlier, I wouldn't have had the limited life expectancy that I do now, for example. So we have to kind of listen to the client, and during those meetings, I usually make an attendance note. So I just type like a transcript of what the client is saying so that we can review it later. And then we get together with our medical researcher and we have a look at the facts and think, okay, is there a breach here? Is there causation? And if there is, then we usually proceed to requesting medical records. So that's something that I've been doing the last couple of days, is finding out where the client has received medical care and then requesting their medical records. And then if those records are supportive, so if they suggest that there might have been a breach and that breach might have led to an avoidable injury, and then we proceed to instructing experts. And so that's also something that I've been doing, is approaching and instructing different experts to comment on different aspects of the case, like Chris mentioned. And these are experts in a huge variety of different fields, from stroke experts to brain injury experts and the like. And then once we receive an expert report, One of my favourite tasks to do actually is reviewing that report and seeing what the expert has said about the care that the client has received. And at this stage, we might actually receive an unsupportive report. So we might get an expert who says, actually, there's no breach of duty here, or there's no causation here. And then at this stage, we have to actually turn down the claim to the client. So we have to write them a letter or give them a phone call and say, actually, you know, we don't think your case will be successful if we proceed with it. So I've actually had to do that as well in the last couple of weeks, which I've actually found quite challenging, but really really rewarding to do, because while we might think that a client will be really disappointed once you tell them, you know, you don't have a claim here, you're actually telling them that, you know, nothing could have been done differently with your injury. And some clients might actually take that and think, you know, now I have closure and I have peace in that sense, that I know that nothing could have happened differently. So that's something that I've learned in my last few weeks as well. And then I've also had experience drafting letters of claim and instructions to counsel. And to do that, I have to kind of synthesize all the facts and pick out the key issues and instruct a barrister to help test the expert evidence that we have. And I've also had some input in schedules of loss. So this is more to do with the quantum stage of a case rather than the liability stage, where we maybe have liability that's been admitted. And at the quantum stage, we then kind of consider, okay, how has this breach of duty actually affected our client? What financial losses have they suffered? What pain and suffering have they been through? And then we kind of try and put a number on that and justify that with evidence. So that's kind of a range of the trainee tasks that we undertake. In terms of what I enjoy, so I've kind of touched on this already, but I really enjoy the medical side of it. I didn't know that I would be this interested in the medicine, but it's really nice to kind of gain an insight into a field that's traditionally, we traditionally think of as so different to law, but in medical negligence, medicine and law kind of intertwine. And it's quite challenging actually to kind of get to grips with these really complex medical concepts. But once you do, it's quite rewarding and satisfying, and you can kind of apply it to your life. Like the other day I was like, Mom, you should get this checked out because, you know, we had a client that had that and then it progressed into that. And, you know, you kind of feel like a little bit of a doctor at the same time as a lawyer. So that's nice. And another thing I really enjoy, I guess, is just progressing a client's case and contributing even small steps just to help them really and progress their claim so that they're one step closer to getting the compensation they need to pay for, you know, private rehabilitation or physiotherapy or adapt their home or whatever they might need that money for. So that's really rewarding. So yeah, I think that's all from me, and now I'll be passing on to Leanne in international serious injury.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lainey Shanks, and I'm a legal director in international serious injury in the London office. I've got a slightly different background into law than everyone else you've heard from so far. I'm originally from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I went to university in Scotland. I originally wanted to be an interpreter or a translator, and I did a languages degree at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh in interpreting and translation with French and Spanish. When I graduated, I moved to London and I got a job working for a Spanish lawyer who primarily acted for French and Spanish speaking clients. So I did language work for him, interpreting, translating, doing legal research. That was a very small niche firm, and we then merged with Irwin Mitchell in 2003, I think it was. So I've been at the firm for over 20 years now. At that point, I got the opportunity to get a formal legal qualification. So I studied in the evenings while continuing to work. I eventually qualified, gained experience on the job, and then eventually worked my way up to my current role of legal director. So in terms of international serious injury, we have private clients. They tend to fall into two types. They're either British people who have had accidents abroad while they've been on holiday or abroad for work, And we also act for non-British people who've come to the UK on holiday or again for work and who've had accidents here. The types of cases we deal with can really vary a lot. So we can deal with road traffic accidents, accidents in hotels, we deal with maritime cases, we deal with winter sports accidents, we deal with medical negligence claims, we deal with illness claims. We also have aviation work. So it's a very broad range of work. It's very interesting. The common theme to the work we do is that all our cases have some kind of international element. So what that means is either the accident happened abroad or the client has some international element to them. So typically that's because they're not from the UK. What that means is we often have to work with lawyers abroad. So we work a lot with lawyers across Europe and also in the States. So that makes the job very interesting. Quite often the law that applies to our cases is not in fact the law of England and Wales, it's the law of another country. So again, that is another interesting and challenging aspect of the work because we need to find out about that law. I thought it might just be helpful to give some examples of cases that I've dealt with which have an international element. So I acted for a French couple who had booked a safari trip with the UK tour operator, and they suffered a very frightening experience when they were mauled by a lion while they were on safari. Because they'd booked that trip with the UK tour operator, they were able to bring their claim in this country, and they didn't really speak much English, so they were looking for a French-speaking lawyer, so they came to us. I've also acted for quite a number of Spanish people who've been living in London either and have either had accidents at work or road traffic accidents, and again, they didn't speak much English, so they were looking for a lawyer who could speak Spanish, and they came to us. In terms of an example of an English client I've acted for who's had an accident abroad, we currently have a case ongoing where our client suffered a very nasty orthopedic injury on a water slide in Spain, and we're bringing a claim for her in this country against the Spanish water park and their insurers. So those are just some examples of the types of cases that we deal with, which are very interesting and very challenging. The cases that we make have also quite often made new law. So we have had lots of cases proceed to the Court of Appeal, to the Supreme Court, and before the UK left the European Union, we had several cases that went to the Court of Justice of the European Union. So we are dealing with very, very complex and very interesting work. In terms of how clients find us, well, that tends to come through our reputation, word of mouth, recommendation. Because lots of our cases are reported, then clients will read about us in the legal press and in the press generally. Clients also find us through the internet and through the firm's website. So that's usually how clients find us. In terms of working with other teams within Irwin Mitchell, it's similar to what you've heard some of my colleagues from other departments say. We have clients who suffered very serious injuries, and that sadly does often mean that their relationships break down, which means they'll often need advice from the family law team. If they're about to receive a large amount of compensation, they may not have a will in place, and so we will work with the team here at Irwin Mitchell who can provide a will for them. Some clients may be at risk of losing their jobs, and so they might need employment advice, and we would work with the employment team. And as with the other teams, we work quite closely with Court of Protection, as many of our clients, because of the severity of their injuries, lack capacity, and so we will need assistance with the Court of Protection in terms of putting in place a deputy. So I hope that gives you a little bit of oversight into the type of work we do in international serious injury and how that's slightly different to the other personal injury teams. I'll now hand you over to the trainee in our team, Eva, who's going to say a little bit about the types of tasks she does on a daily basis.
Hello everyone, my name is Eva Freund. I'm a trainee solicitor currently in the International Serious Injury team in London. My background is in law. I actually started studying psychology, I did a BSc and an MSc in psychology, and then later decided to transition to law. So I completed my GDL in 2019. I am British, but I'm also German and Chilean, and I spent about 6 years living in Italy, completing my A-level studies. So my mother tongue is English, but I also speak Italian fluently, and I speak German. So far in my current seat, I'm a first year, I've been in this seat for about 6 weeks. I've already put my Italian to use, so I called doctor in Italy to get some medical records from him. In terms of the trainee tasks, they are very broad. There's a huge range and variety of things I've been getting involved in since I started, and I've been finding all of the work very, very interesting. Some of these tasks have been taking witness statements and drafting the same. Some of the witnesses may not speak English as their mother tongue, so there could be an additional complexity with that. I've been attending numerous conferences with clients and experts, and barristers, and then drafting detailed attendance notes for the same. I've also attended quite a few events and training opportunities during the seat. Some training sessions have been on claims specifically arising from water-related sports and activities, or training regarding Recital 33 of Rome 2. What I find in the seat is that there is the added complexity of jurisdiction. So, for example, I've taken a new client inquiry, and in this experience learned that there are quite a few additional and specific questions that need to be asked simply to determine which jurisdiction applies, and then that can determine whether the case that we can have it. As Linnea said, it's very interesting because the law that we end up applying might not be the law that we've studied in uni, and so you get the opportunity to learn about law and legal processes beyond England and Wales. I've helped on a very interesting case, which might be going to the Admiralty Court. I prepared a trial bundle which consisted of over 2,000 pages. It contained a lot of maritime regulations, very, very interesting. The case itself was regarding an incident that happened in a piracy hotspot in the sea. And before working on this case, I didn't even consider that piracy was still an issue. So this has been a very interesting case to be working on. I've also attended a nearly a whole day joint settlement meeting for a defendant client, very, very high value, complex case that involved 12 experts. That's very interesting to be a part of and to see how the how negotiations proceeded. Finally, I've done some research on my current seat, and that's been quite interesting, and it's research I quite enjoy. I've been doing research for cases to try and help determine quantum for current clients, or for instance, looking for recent case law concerning in loco parentis regarding potential new clients we want to take on. So in summary, I haven't been on the seat for too long, however, it's already been really valuable, very interesting. I would say if you like court and you're interested in international work, this is definitely an area of law for you. I'm now going to pass on to Philip and family.
Thanks, Eva. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Phil. I'm a partner in the Manchester office. Just a little bit of background in terms of where I grew up and went to uni. So I am Preston, born and bred, Preston in Lancashire, went to school in Blackpool, didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and did a real mix of A-levels, did a mixture of sciences, English and languages. I did end up studying law at Oxford University, where I lived for 3 years, and then I came back up north and studied the LPC in Manchester. Like you've heard from some of my colleagues, I secured my training contract in my second year of university and started my training contract at Addleshaws in Leeds, and that was in 2002. I qualified into the family team at Addleshaws and stayed there for 2 years. After 2 years, I moved to Pennoni in Manchester, which at the time was the only Band 1 ranked law firm for family law in the Northwest. I spent most of my career at Pannoni until it was acquired by Slater and Gordon in 2014. And then shortly after that, I left and moved to a small firm in South Manchester, where I spent the next few years. That suited my life at the time. Had a family and 2 small children. And then I joined Irwin Mitchell about 18 months ago in April last year. In terms of family law, it largely involves any issues that arise from a separation. So mainly divorce, financial settlements on divorce, arrangements for children, disputes between couples who aren't married, and then also wealth protection using prenup and postnuptial agreements. The family team is separated into groups which work nationally, and each group has a hierarchy of fee earners from partner, legal director, all the way down to newly qualified solicitors, trainees and paralegals. And one of the nice things about that structure is you could be working with a partner in the Manchester office one day, then you could be working with a senior associate on another case in, for example, the Bristol office the other day. It's a really good way of gaining lots of exposure and experience in different types of work. The other great thing about the family team is that we have 13 teams of excellence, which anybody can join those teams of excellence if it's something that they're particularly interested in, an area of work that they're interested in, or they just want to develop their skills in that particular field. So those teams of excellence include modern families, including surrogacy and fertility treatment, complex finance work, complex children work, prenup and postnuptial agreements, and trusts of land and cohabitation disputes. We've also got a highly regarded religious and cultural team of excellence, where we are dealing with groundbreaking law in Sharia type work. The types of clients that we deal with, they're all private individuals. We typically act for other professionals, so other lawyers, accountants, doctors. We act for sportsmen and sportswomen, often people in the public eye, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and landed gentry. As you've heard from some of my colleagues, the type of work that we do is often groundbreaking. We've also had cases that have gone to the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. One of the most recent Supreme Court cases that we have been involved in was a Manchester case, and that is now the leading authority on non-disclosure in divorce financial settlements. In terms of the teams that we work with, we often say there isn't really a client that we can't act for, and in terms of that, it sort of encompasses loads of other areas of law. So if you imagine, most couples who go through a divorce will have a family home, and as part of the financial settlement, that will probably either need to be sold or transferred to one of the parties. So we would liaise with our colleagues in residential property. Divorce also affects inheritance, so we regularly work with our private client advisory team for a new will. It's not unheard of for separating couples to work in the same business. That might involve us having to liaise with our employment team about terminating somebody's employment in that company. We often work with the corporate team when there are complex businesses and business structures that we need advice on, and sort of unravelling those complex structures as part of a divorce financial settlement. And as you've already heard, We work closely with our PI and COP teams, particularly in those cases where clients have received large settlements and that needs to be either protected using a prenup or a postnup agreement. As I said, there's probably no client that we can't help or can't work with. The only caveat to that is we don't have a legal aid certificate, so we can only act for individuals on a private basis. The way that the team is structured nationally means that we can work closely even with clients on low incomes. So I will work regularly with the trainees and give them exposure to running cases on their own, but I will provide that supervision to allow them to still act for that client even if money is an issue. But as I say, the only clients that we can't really act for are the ones who would be entitled to legal aid and don't have the funds in order to meet our fees. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Ellen, who is our current trainee, or one of the current trainees in our London office.
Thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. My name is Ellen, and I'm a third seat trainee in the Family Law Department. I work nationally with fee earners, as Phil's just described, from all over the country, but I'm based in the London office. So a bit about me and my background. I'm similar to Eva, not purely from the UK. I'm English and Italian, and I grew up outside of the UK. But I studied my undergraduate law degree at Exeter, and then I went to Hong Kong to study a master's in human rights law. And when I was studying out in Hong Kong, I applied for training contracts, and I got a training contract at Owen Mitchell to start in 2024. So after I finished my master's, I did the LPC. And just to describe my training contract journey a little bit, my first seat was in serious injury. My second seat was in medical negligence. Obviously now I'm in family. And in family, in terms of typical trainee tasks, they vary a lot. No day is the same. So what we will do 3 times a week in family as trainees is take the new inquiry calls. And this is where people who need help with any sort of family law issue call us to explain their issue and what they will need help with. We then take this information and we work out whether this is something we can actually help them with. And if it is, then we set up an initial meeting with them and a fee earner. And usually we will also attend that meeting, take the notes, and then probably work on that case going forward. Other tasks that we do include attending hearings with our clients and counsel, attending conferences with counsel and clients, doing legal research, so similar to other trainees that have spoken. And this could really be on anything. For example, the other day I did some research for a fee earner for a client who was considering going through surrogacy, and I compared the legislation in England and Wales to America so that we could present that back to the client. Other tasks that I've helped with include financial disclosure of both parties, drafting any sort of statements, and collating bundles, often for big hearings or conferences with the council. I really enjoy the client-facing nature of family law, particularly taking the new inquiries, because you're there at some of the most difficult points in a client's life, and it's a real privilege to be entrusted with that information and to be able to work with the client to think about solutions and be able to help. Every case is different, and I really like that about family law, as well as the fast-paced nature of it. The cases move quite quickly, and tasks need to be done very fast, so that's different to maybe my previous seats, and I really enjoy that. It makes every day quite interesting, and it means that you're learning constantly. And lastly, I really like the personal aspect to it, so the story behind it and the different relationships that you learn about. I find it really interesting. So yeah, a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I'm conscious of time. I'll pass on to Jess in private client advisory now. Thank you.
Hello all. My name is Jess Beddoes. I am a partner in the private client advisory team. I'm based in the Birmingham office. I actually joined Irwin Mitchell in 2023 to set up the private client team in Birmingham, as we hadn't had one for some years. So relatively new to the firm, but I have been working in law for many years. So my team is now 6 solicitors. We have a trainee solicitor and 2 PAs. We do work nationally, and so Birmingham is grouped with the Leeds and Manchester teams. So after me, our trainee Fozia, who is in Leeds, will be giving her point of view as well. I'm also an early careers regional representative for the Birmingham office. So I deal with recruitment of trainees throughout the assessment process and then the final interviews in person. When the trainees are then with the firm, I assist with pastoral care, career guidance, and I work with the early careers team throughout. So just a little bit of a background about my sort of journey into law. I'm from Solihull, originally in the West Midlands, and I studied initially history at Nottingham, but after a year I decided it wasn't for me. So I came back home, got a job actually working as an admin assistant for quite a large law firm in Birmingham. And I then got a role working as a paralegal for a medium-sized law firm doing private client. So I did do then, during that time, I did my law degree part-time at the University of Wolverhampton. And then I did my LPC also part-time at the College of Law in Birmingham, now University of Law. So although I took a longer route into law, I built up a lot of experience. And so when I qualified, I was able to pretty much have a caseload and run matters sort of from the off. I found it quite helpful sort of learning and working at the same time and putting things into practice. In private client advisory, we deal with wills, powers of attorney, estate and tax planning for clients and how to manage their wealth and their tax liabilities. We also create and administer trusts for clients. We obtain grants of probates and deal with deceased estates. We assist vulnerable clients throughout when they have capacity. That could be advising families of a vulnerable person as to how they should structure their own planning, their wills, putting trusts in place. And we do work with all manner of different clients. So it could be individuals, couples, families, to business owners, entrepreneurs, landowners and farming families. So a real mixed bag. The teams we work with, due to the broad nature of our work and client base, we work with most teams across the business. So on individual services, it could be wills, estate planning, trusts and probate for clients in the tax team, court of protection, public law, personal injury, medical negligence, serious injury and family teams. And then we are often working on the business services side to often do the same basically for our business services clients. And we also make a number of referrals across to those teams. I'm now handing over to my client Fozia, who is currently a trainee solicitor within private client advisory. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name's Fozia. I am a trainee solicitor in my first year, in my first seat within private client advisory, also at the Leeds office. I've been at Irwin Mitchell for just over 4 years now, as I worked previously as a personal injury paralegal in the criminal injuries department. So in terms of my background into law, I studied law A-level and it inspired me to pursue further studies into law. So I decided to do a law degree at the University of Leeds because I found I really enjoyed the problem-solving nature of working within law. I decided to apply for a paralegal position instead of studying the LPC after university to allow me to establish whether I really wanted to work in law. So I worked as a paralegal in the criminal injuries department for a couple of years before deciding to apply for a training contract. I found that I thoroughly enjoyed the nature of the work, so helping vulnerable clients and the intellectually stimulating nature of the work. So I decided to apply for my training contract in 2023 and started my training contract this summer. And I'll also be studying for the solicitors qualifying exams part-time alongside working as a trainee solicitor. So that's a bit about my background. Sorry, and just in terms of the type of tasks that I am involved with in private client, the range of areas of helping varies widely. So it includes wills, estate planning, lasting powers of attorney, probate matters, tax and trusts. So a lot to get involved in. In terms of the actual day-to-day tasks, I speak with new clients and obtain some more information from them in relation to their inquiries. So again, that can range from estate planning, inheritance advice, probate after someone's passed away and the steps that need to be taken after that. I also attend client meetings and take detailed attendance notes for the fee earner and help with any follow-up steps that are required after the meeting's taken place. So for example, recently I attended a client meeting with my supervisor for somebody who wished to have their will redrafted. So I shadowed the drafting of the will and helped to draft part of the will, as well as a 1975 Act statement, which basically explains the client's reasoning for why he wished to leave his assets in the way that he did following our meeting. In terms of other tasks, I carried out legal research tasks for fee earners. So one task that I did recently that I quite enjoyed was researching personal injury trust and tax implications in relation to a personal injury trust specifically. I've also carried out a legal research task recently in relation to execution clauses in a will and how they might differ for somebody who, for example, has a visual impairment. I also work on personal injury trusts. So, for example, clients who have obtained compensation following injury, whether this be, for example, after a road traffic accident or a criminal injuries case where somebody's been assaulted or abused and received compensation following that, and they might need a trust to store that money into. So I do work with Jess's team in Birmingham. So as Jess kind of touched upon, there is a lot of client sharing and working with other departments within Irwin Mitchell. So I quite like that because it allows you to build your professional network within the firm and also build your relationships with other people across the firm. So yeah, I feel like there's quite a lot of skills you can develop by working as a trainee in private clients specifically, including some of the things that I mentioned, your communication with clients, drafting skills, your research, teamwork, because you're working very closely with others, whether they're in your own department or departments across the firm. Soft skills are also very important. So empathy and friendliness for clients who might be going through quite a difficult or stressful time in their lives. And in terms of what I enjoy, I really enjoy the opportunity to engage with clients from kind of the outset of your legal career. Really, you're really trusted and given responsibility when speaking to clients, which can seem a bit daunting at first, but you are provided with really close supervision at Irwin Mitchell, and it really allows you to build your confidence when dealing with the clients. Another thing I enjoy is completing legal research tasks and drafting documents. I think there's kind of satisfaction after you've completed the tasks and receive feedback, whether it's positive to allow you to build your confidence or constructive to allow you to develop your skills even further and be kind of the best trainee and hopefully best solicitor that you can be once qualified. So yeah, I hope that has helped to give you a bit more of an insight into trainee life in the private client department, and I'll now hand back to Rebecca.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Fawzia. I hope everybody who has attended has really enjoyed hearing about our clients. There has been a lot to take on. I've very much learned things myself, which is always hugely helpful. So I hope that's the same for everyone that's attended today. So thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much to all our speakers who've given up their time to help educate those who might be interested in applying to us. The key date is on the slide showing now. You have until the 1st of December to submit your application if you're interested. So we really hope after today you go away and there is something that's been covered that has really piqued your interest. So thank you. We are running 8 minutes over, so unfortunately we don't have enough time left to answer questions, but I really do hope we've covered everything. I know the pre-submitted questions, it looks like we managed to cover pretty much everything, so I hope that's everyone's taken away what they were hoping to from today. So thank you so much, and we hope to see an application from you all soon.